What's going on, everyone? Today, 94% of the S&P 500 closed up in the green, clearing the way for tomorrow's craziness as the second largest company in the market and one of the most popular and biggest moving companies in the world, Nvidia, is set to report earnings, and this is going to have a massive impact on the entire market given how large this company is and how much it normally moves. On top of that, the president of the United States is now buying Bitcoin, which is making for some pretty exciting trading opportunities. Elon Musk is back in action, and Tesla stock is loving this news as it popped up by nearly 7% today and went up all day long. And tonight we have one of the biggest and boldest $27 million big money trades that we've ever covered before. So we have some great moves and opportunities for tomorrow. Stick with us all the way until the end. But Tom, let's not waste any time and let's get right to it.
Yeah, the S&P 500 and the SPY made a really nice gap up this morning, and as we can see, the SPY had a really good trading day. I know it dipped right at open where we did see some selling come in, but for the whole rest of the trading day, we saw a very nice push and recovery, and the SPY ended up closing close to 591.50 here. So overall, really nice push back to the upside. I know the SPY had been selling back down last week, and I guess this is a really good way to kind of kick off the start of this trading week, especially with Nvidia's big earnings and everything like that coming into play. Everybody's kind of questioning okay, what's going on here with this big gap up? What really caused this? I think that delaying the EU tariffs out until July is playing a big role. There was some positive comments with Apple today as well, where they said they pretty much didn't want to hurt Apple, so that was pretty nice to hear. Apple ended up going up 2.5%. I do think that Tesla's news played a role as well. Of course, they're a very influential stock, moving up 7%. So we had a few things kind of helping fuel this rally with the SPY here, but overall, great way to kick off the week.
It seriously was, and looking at the key event for tomorrow, this Nvidia earnings release, we do have some important information to know heading into this event. First off, it's going to happen after close tomorrow, so keep that in mind, and what everyone is really going to be watching here is how Nvidia does on their China segment. We know Nvidia is the leader and the powerhouse in AI chips, and you could just say the whole AI industry, and we also know that the US government does not like them selling their powerful chips to China, not only because it can really help the Chinese AI programs, but also because China could use their powerful AI chips for military purposes, and the US doesn't want any of that. So basically, they have been putting on more and more restrictions and regulations in terms of what Nvidia can actually sell to China, and everyone is looking to see what impact this will have this quarter. As of right now, around 14% of Nvidia's revenue is expected to come from China this quarter, and a lot of people are going to be looking closely in terms of how this earnings report comes in, because if Nvidia takes a major hit from China this quarter, of course it will significantly impact their revenue and net profit, and a lot of people are really looking at Nvidia right now in the way where everyone knows, yes, they are growing like crazy, but the rate at which they are growing is slowing down quite a bit. For example, in their most recent earnings release, they grew their revenue by 262% year over year, and they grew their earnings per share by 461% year over year. And heading into this quarter's earnings, they are only expected to grow their earnings per share by 44% and their revenue by 66%. So what we can have is a situation here where Nvidia, continues to grow, but if they don't grow in a way that truly wows investors, that doesn't mean that the stock, has to necessarily go up.
Yeah, and they could still, let's say, meet analyst expectations on, let's say, revenue, EPS, certain segments, and the stock can still go down if it does not wow investors in the way that Mike said. And, maybe they'll come out with something that does wow investors. They might come out with something special at their conference call and start to switch things up a little bit. But I am definitely worried about this one, Mike. Whenever we look at Nvidia in the short term, the China restrictions definitely have me pretty on edge. But I will say their stock has been recovering up up pretty well in recent weeks. I know recently it posted this low down around $87 to $90, and now we're all the way back up to $135, and it's kind of stuck up here in this range. If we do, like, let's say, get a really good earnings report tomorrow, I think that we could end up seeing a great explosion up and out of this range past 140, possibly even, as we see a pretty good move come into play. But at the same time, I feel like that this is a pretty crazy range here, and if we do see a rejection, then I think it could be pretty bloody, and we might come down to start to retest a lot of these lower levels, of course. And I know a lot of people might say, well, Tom, duh, it's going to go one way or the other, right? It could end up going flat as well, and obviously that would be worst case scenario. I just want to emphasize, be very careful playing earnings. It can be very risky. Market makers price options in ways that definitely hurt people, but at the end of the day, there will be some big moves, and it'll be a fun stock to see. And I think that playing the move after the earnings would be the best way to go, because we can really identify the upper end of this range, and if we start to see a breakout, just trade the breakout afterwards.
And the great thing about NVIDIA is that it normally does have strong moves. So whether it moves up or down, it doesn't really you don't have to be first to the move. And one key thing from the most recent earnings report is that the stock actually gapped up, but then changed directions once the market opened, which just further goes to reinforce the fact that, you can play this move after the earnings release comes out and ride the momentum after the fact. And the key opportunity here is that we know that, NVIDIA stock moves strongly. We know that it also has market moving potential, considering it is the second heaviest weighted company in the entire S&P 500, and it has a 6% weighting in the S&P 500 itself, coming in just under Microsoft. So again, wait for that momentum, wait for that direction, and then, considering riding the trend.
Yeah, there's no reason to really front run this move, in my opinion, but there's been a lot of stocks in the short term having some pretty insane movement, and these are stocks that have partnered with NVIDIA, so keep those on the radar too. CRWV has been moving a lot, up 20%, and NVTS has been moving a lot as well, up 47% today. This one's not as popular, but it's Navitas Semiconductors, and what Navitas does is they actually make chips using silicon carbide and gallium nitride, and this is pretty much used in higher voltage applications as far as EVs are concerned, maybe higher end or higher powered AI data centers. And that's really where I think the growth could be seen with this. They've recently had some news connected with NVIDIA to use these chips in their new architecture. So I thought that sounded awesome, but I just wanted to bring this stock up as well, Mike, because there's some great technology, some great news here with NVIDIA, and with NVIDIA's earnings. I figured that I'd mention them, considering that they were up 47%. I just cannot believe how much this stock is moving and how much volume and buying pressure we saw early on today.
Yeah, it's crazy. And this stock has a short float of around 20.8%, which just continues to fuel that explosive uptrend. NVIDIA is one of those stocks that not only has a big impact on its own stock, but also other stocks like NVTS, CRWV, and quite frankly, the entire S&P 500 as a whole. So either way, tomorrow will be important. Keep a close eye on all of these stocks for some pretty big moves. But we also had a lot of action today in the crypto markets. So we have some pretty cool stuff to talk about, as Bitcoin is sitting at $110,000 per coin, only $2,000 away from a new all-time high, right around $112,000. And in case you missed it, the President of the United States is set to buy some Bitcoin. So today, Trump Media announced that it is raising $2.5 billion to buy Bitcoin, which is set to be one of the largest Bitcoin treasury deals of any public company. And basically, Trump has been very vocal and very bullish on the crypto space, and especially Bitcoin. And this is coming as the crypto total market value has just been surging over the past few weeks. As we can see here, from the April 8th low from this recent market downturn, the crypto market has increased by $1 trillion in value, or 42%, which is crazy. And now it's only just 6% below its peak from December of 2024. So there's a lot of strength. There's a lot of buying happening with cryptos right here. And it's definitely an exciting time to look at this area of the market. And I'll say this. Make sure you stick with us towards the big money play today. It is one of the craziest we've ever covered.
It definitely is, and it's awesome to see crypto doing as well as it has been. I know that it's been doing very well in the short term, coming back up, making a new all-time high just last week at that 112,000 mark, and if we could get there and break it sooner rather than later once again, I would be very pleased with that in the short term. There are a lot of crypto stocks in play right now, whether you look at Coinbase, MicroStrategy, or others. There's been a lot of volatility across the board with these, some better than others. I will say, if we look at Mara, it's been actually down in the dumps, where we look at something like IBIT, which kind of follows Bitcoin a little bit more directly. It's been obviously following it up very nicely. But overall, amazing news with crypto. And I couldn't believe that DJT was falling off so much from this, Mike, down 10%. I feel bad for the DJT shareholders who keep trying to stick this one out. I feel like this poor stock gets beaten down every single day.
Yeah, it certainly is crazy. And I think like the key takeaway from this news segment is that like we knew Trump has been very bullish on crypto, but when he's out here literally buying billions of dollars of Bitcoin, I think those actions say a lot. He definitely is bullish on it, and I wouldn't be surprised if he continued to sign executive orders and just make other rules and just like make it easier for the crypto market to continue to grow. Again, his actions say a lot. So take from this what you will, but it's definitely a good sign for Bitcoin.
It's awesome to look at it right now, up at this 110 to 112,000 mark. I will be waiting for the breakout. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be calling for $120,000 next. That'll be the next big level once we really start to break out past 112K. But Mike, I know that there's been a lot of talk about deregulation with Bitcoin and everything like that. Tesla, of course, has been benefiting quite a bit, I would say, since Trump has become president. I know that they did very well whenever he first initially got elected. We can see how Tesla stock really flew up from the bottom there. I know that they did pull back recently, but as of today, Tesla stock made a really good breakout of its recent range and high of 355, as Elon pretty much said that he's going to be coming back to Tesla and is going to be super focused on his companies. So I thought that was great to hear. He did say he's going to be going back to work, spending 24/7 at work, in his own words there. So very interesting news with Tesla and Elon, but shareholders definitely liked it. Tesla was one of the biggest leaders in the S&P 500 today, closing up almost 7%. And if we go over to the heat map, we can see it was definitely a nice day overall, but it's hard to find something that did as good as Tesla did.
And the price action was phenomenal as well. It's not like it just had like one giant pop up at open and then it just fizzled out. Like it like sustained that strength all day long. It even closed strongly as well. So it's definitely a stock to keep close on watch. I know investors were not too happy with how Elon had that couple month leave, we can say, with Doge, and didn't have all the same amount of energy to put back into Tesla. But either way, this is a good sign for Tesla as a company, and certainly Tesla investors continue to keep Tesla close on the radar for more big moves throughout the week, given this news, but also just given all the other big events we have set to happen. Tom, looking at Tesla for tomorrow, are there any key levels that you're seeing on the charts to pay attention to?
It really broke out above a pretty key short-term resistance here, right around 350 to 355, and now that is going to be a very key support area. If we end up seeing a pullback back below there, that will be a big worry for me. 370 is a big resistance coming up. If we go back on the hourly chart and we zoom out to the last time Tesla was at these levels, where it closed today at 360 was pretty influential. We can see that there were multiple hits right off of this exact level, right around the high of day today. So getting a good breakout past this range up towards 370 would definitely be a good thing to see in the short term, especially if you're a scalper, like for tomorrow, for example.
Perfect. And another thing to pay attention to for tomorrow is the FOMC minutes report at 2 p.m. Eastern time. This will basically be a recap of the most recent FOMC interest rate decision. Sometimes these events can move the markets depending on what's in them, so just be aware of this for tomorrow. And besides that, Tom, I think we are all set for some SPY levels and analysis for tomorrow. What are the key levels you're seeing on the charts, and what levels should we keep on watch?
Today's gap up was pretty important and pretty influential, I would say. We saw a gap up happen like this on the SPY chart a couple weeks ago, actually, on Monday, and we saw a pretty good subsequent move the next couple trading days after that. So I'm definitely going to be watching SPY very closely as it moves, but there are some major resistances coming into play. I think for tomorrow, 592 and 592.50 are the most important levels to watch. We can see right here, there was a very clear hit last Wednesday before we saw a pretty big sell-off, and there were a couple of other hits in the past very close to this level. If this breaks, there was a recent high very close to 595.50 to 596, and that will definitely be on the radar once we get past 592.50, so you could maybe try to play like a breakout up into this range if we do see the bullish price action continue into tomorrow. I think that the biggest thing is going to be identifying the breakout at 592.50. If we do end up seeing like a rejection and a move back towards the bottom of this range, it would be pretty negative, obviously, if you are a bull, and we might need to adapt to the downside if that rejection does come in. Just remember that Nvidia reports earnings in after hours tomorrow, so there might be a lot of people that are skeptical and kind of waiting for Nvidia to report, so we could see a bit of flatter price action. That is something that I'm a little bit skeptical and worried about.
And another thing, too, is keep a close eye on some of these stocks that have a ton of momentum right now, like Tesla, like we just covered. You know, while the market can be a little bit choppy, Tesla can fly up by another 7%. Like when it has momentum, it has that ability to truly run. So definitely keep that in mind. And besides that, let's jump right into some setups and predictions. A stock that is close on watch is SOUN, and it is to the upside. So this is one of those AI/hype companies, and of course it is very speculative. And the stock was up by like 16% today, and it's definitely on the radar considering this Nvidia earnings release. When a behemoth like Nvidia reports earnings, it has an impact on so many companies, especially some of these smaller hype-driven ones like SoundHound. SOUN is definitely going to be on my bullish radar, where in a perfect world, it breaks above that $11.25 area of resistance. And the more momentum it has, the better the setup becomes. You know, if the stock doesn't really if it just chops around and it's not actually moving in a momentum-driven way, then a setup like this is a lot harder to justify. But if Nvidia continues to, bring in more euphoria to the market, these smaller stocks can certainly move, as we can see just by looking at today's price action.
That was a pretty great move today, up over 16% here with SoundHound, so I'll definitely be watching it. It is one of those stocks that can definitely move quite a bit with Nvidia in the short term. With my first setup, I'm looking at CoreWeave, CRWV to the upside. With Nvidia moving a lot, it was up 20% today, and they've been having great price action ever since announcing that partnership with them, and honestly, since they IPO'd, they've been doing very well, but I'll definitely be watching CoreWeave for more good short-term price action. They continue to power themselves higher. Tomorrow, if they break above that high of day from today around 125, keep watching for more good bullish opportunities. As far as scalps go, it's hard to get much better than some of these growth stocks in the short term here. We've been seeing some awesome price action. Even last week, while the SPY dipped, a lot of these stocks like CoreWeave were still ripping to the upside.
They're insane. Look at that daily chart of CoreWeave. It is like seriously like an exponential chart, just getting like crazier and crazier. So we know the stock is certainly in play. Of course, it doesn't have to rise tomorrow, but we know that it will move quite a bit. So definitely keep it close on watch. Another stock that is definitely on the radar is HIMS, and it is actually to the downside. I've been looking at this one in like a counter trend sense for like the past few weeks now, and it's starting to weaken a little bit more more. I would love to see this one flush below that $51.50 area. It might or might not be able to do that tomorrow, but I am waiting for this breakdown here. If that happens, I think there will be a pretty good reward to risk playing this one in a bearish way. The stock is great. I love it for the long term, but in a short term sense, it is a bit overextended, and we are starting to see more and more selling pressure come into play here. So I'm just waiting on that breakdown.
Yeah, I thought the way it actually turned over today, like whenever the market opened and continued, was a pretty good sign. I'll definitely be watching it down for the next few days as well. I agree that it's a little bit overextended in the short term. With my next setup, I'm looking at Meta for a 645 potential break back to the upside. I know that might be a bit of a surprise to say in the short term, considering that a lot of stocks are right around resistance, but I do think that Meta could end up breaking this next 645 resistance, and if it does break, I think looking for a push towards 650 over the next couple days could be an awesome way to go. As we look at the the Meta Bookmap here, we can see that there are some sellers stacked up around 642 and 645. So if we do get that good 645 breakout, watch for that next resistance at 650. There's around 73,000 shares at that 650 mark, which is pretty huge for such a high price stock like Meta. So it'll be kind of like a smaller play, only a 5-point move, but honestly for a scalp, it could be pretty awesome with some weekly options.
Sounds good. All right, Tom. Well, besides that, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Big Bear AI, BBAI to the upside.
23% today. These growth stocks were literally insane. If they can break out above $4.55, keep watching them up.
All right, with the next one, we have Nano Nuclear Energy, NNE, to the downside.
NNE did an offering at just the right time, and they sold off this morning. If they end up breaking down under $32, then keep watching them to the downside.
And then with the last one, we have AMC, ticker symbol AMC, to the upside.
I almost can't even believe I'm saying this one, Mike, but AMC is coming back from the dead, up 23% today, which was nice. If they can break out above $4.10, keep watching them up as well.
Sounds good. So keep a close eye on these three stocks for tomorrow for potential continuations if and only if they break through the levels listed. As always, have stop losses to protect yourself. But besides that, Tom, we are all clear for the time that everyone has been waiting for, which is today's $27 million big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol ETHA. So for those of you who don't know, this is an ETF that follows Ethereum, and this connects into one of the biggest segments of today's video, which is tied to the crypto industry. So we're going to get into that in just a second, but the actual trade is the 21 strike call options for December 19th of 2025. This is a massive trade, as we can see here. These options are, just slightly out of the money. There's a fair amount of time to them, and the trader here is positioning themselves to profit for Ethereum prices going up. I think this trade is very, very interesting in the sense that it is happening at the same time where Trump is basically set to buy billions of dollars in Bitcoin. And as Bitcoin rises, that has a positive influence not only on, of course, Bitcoin itself, but also other major cryptocurrencies out there like Ethereum. If we go to the chart of Ethereum, we can see it also has been gaining a lot of momentum in the short term. It's up 4% on the day, and it's getting closer and closer to breaking out of its recent range right around that $2,740 area. So very interesting setup here. The trader for these ETHA call options also strategically filled their orders today incrementally throughout the day to help avoid the detection of them. So very interesting setup.
Yeah, extremely interesting here, Mike. And whenever I look at Ethereum and I look at Bitcoin and everything rising in the short term, it's really good to see Ethereum sitting at the top end of its range. If we go back to Ethereum's actual chart here, it just looks a lot better on the daily candles. So I'll just sit here for the analysis really quickly. But this range is pretty crucial. And with it coming up now for this third test very quickly, I would not be surprised if over the next couple trading days, it started to really break out through here here. So be a little wary with ETHA. I would try not to wait too long on this one. You might end up missing the break if it does end up happening. And whenever I look at like Ethereum and ETHA in general, there's a lot of room back to the upside. I'm surprised to say how much Ethereum is actually down and off of its highs. You know, it's down a lot more than Bitcoin, obviously, which just made a new all-time high. And it does seem to appear that there's definitely like a lot of room back up if we do continue on this bull trend. So I like it quite a bit. The setup's there, and it's a ton of money, $27 million. I don't think that we've ever seen one this big. Have we, Mike? Does this break a record?
It's close. There have only been a couple of them that have been even close to being this big, but I would say it's definitely the boldest trade that we've probably ever seen. I think it's very, very interesting how, there are multiple key effects playing into this all at once. Of course, the Trump news is very big and very important, but there's also a lot of geopolitical things happening as well, as we're seeing a lot of money flow into Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market as investors are resorting to safety in a time of ever increasing uncertainty, especially with this trade war. So very interesting setup here. I like how they have time to it. So we shall see. But before we move on, we have to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Stay Ready, in the StockedUp Discord, who had a great profit post today with Tesla. So he finished trading very early today. It looks like 13 minutes into market open, and he made a little bit over $4,000 with Tesla. So huge shout out to you, Stay Ready. Keep up the great work going forward and keep on rolling. If you guys are new to the channel, definitely consider obliterating that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. And if you haven't tried Bookmap yet already, definitely check it out. It is like X-ray vision for the stock market. You can see where all of the key levels are for support, resistance, and just existing buy and sell orders. It also works for crypto as well, which can be pretty exciting with the recent Bitcoin action and, of course, the Ethereum big money trade. If you want to try it out, make sure to use the link down below so you can save. A special offers icon will appear, and you can get access to some of the best prices possible. Either way, tomorrow is set to be an exciting day for the market. There should be some big moves, and make sure to tune in tomorrow as well, as we will digest this Nvidia earnings release and everything else that is happening. Thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.